Hollywood once sold itself as the land of dreams. The 1950s were filled with images of perfect gentlemen, men with deep, velvet voices, hypnotic eyes, and movie poster looks that made women across the world faint in theaters. They were the icons, the faces carved into America's memory, but behind the glowing spotlights and red carpets, there was another Hollywood. A darker one where fame had a price, and the price was often paid with flesh. Some of the most celebrated names, men who appeared untouchable, had to strip away their dignity to gain their shot. They were told to undress in hotel rooms, to serve cocktails at midnight, when everyone knew cocktails meant something else. Some were secretly filmed, blackmailed, forced to live in silence their entire lives, terrified that one leak could destroy everything. At least 10 of Hollywood's most admired leading men walked through those shadowy doors. They smiled on screen, but behind the scenes they were bargaining with their very bodies. So who were these men, and why did they, the very idols of a generation, find themselves trapped in humiliating exchanges just to keep their place in the spotlight? The truth begins with a rebel. A young man with sad eyes, messy curls, and a destiny that would end in tragedy. One James Dean, the rebel with chains. Hollywood. Summer of 1951. A 20-year-old farm boy from Indiana arrived in Los Angeles. His name was James Dean. He had no money, no connections, no real plan. Only a haunting face that looked both innocent and dangerous at the same time. That strange mix was exactly what drew the secret talent scouts who prowled the Chateau Marmont Hotel, a place insiders once called the after-hours casting office of the industry. According to a bartender who worked the ground floor bar, Dean was lured into one of those private gatherings where the rules were simple. The young men weren't called by names, but by numbers. Dean was number 6. He was quiet, didn't ask questions, and never fought back. That made him valuable. One of the first men to sponsor him was Rogers Brackett, a New York theater director more than twice his age. Brackett gave Dean a place to stay, fed him, even pulled strings for auditions, but the price was steep. Actress Christine White, who lived in the same building at the time, later admitted, "I used to hear Dean crying in the bathroom at 3 in the morning, but in the morning he would put on his jacket and smile like nothing happened." Dean quickly learned the real system. He was escorted to upscale parties, where he wasn't just serving drinks. On one night he was sent to spend time with an older investor in exchange for a television role. He didn't say no because saying no meant going back to washing dishes in a Sunset Boulevard diner. One of the darkest rumors followed him for years, that he was secretly filmed in a penthouse with a studio executive. That tape was allegedly used as leverage to keep Dean obedient. From then on, his life wasn't his own. What he wore, where he went, even who he dated publicly, everything was managed. He grew paranoid, withdrawn, suspicious, like someone who believed he was being watched every day. James Dean traded his body for fame, but what he got wasn't freedom. It was a short-lived dream. 3 films later, in 1955, he died in a car crash at just 24. His career barely begun. His secrets buried with him. But Dean was only the beginning, because another man didn't just endure the system, he weaponized it. 2. Marlon Brando, Confessions of a Superstar. Marlon Brando was the face of raw masculinity. Audiences saw him as the ultimate rebel, a man who could take whatever he wanted. But behind the curtain, Brando himself admitted the truth. "I slept with anyone who could give me a part, male or female. It didn't matter, as long as they had power." That shocking confession, later repeated in Vanity Fair, wasn't an exaggeration. Brando began on small New York stages, broke and desperate. It was director George Cukor who first invested in him, offering $300 a week in exchange for late-night rehearsals in his Beverly Hills apartment. Cukor would later recommend Brando for A Streetcar Named Desire, the role that made him a legend. But it didn't stop there. Brando was calculating. He knew how to charm, seduce, and trade himself for opportunity. A personal diary discovered after his death allegedly listed 14 men who had given him money, shelter, or direct roles. One of them was Jack Warner, the Warner Brothers tycoon, who protected Brando from a sex scandal in 1953, so he could continue filming Julius Caesar. For Brando, this wasn't shame. It was strategy. He treated intimacy like a business transaction. But the darker side of that truth was the trail of broken people behind him. Young men he mentored, who entered those same shadowy rooms, never escaped. And one of them was James Dean's friend, a boy who rose quickly and fell even faster. 3. Sal Mineo, the star who knew too much. Sal Mineo was only 16 when Hollywood came calling. He was lured into a private audition at a producer's home. He later admitted to a friend, "They said I'd get the part if I proved I was soft enough." He stayed the night. The next morning, his name was on the audition list for Rebel Without a Cause. Mineo never denied it. Years later, in a television interview that was cut from broadcast, he said bluntly, "In Hollywood, if you don't satisfy them, they won't even remember your name." After James Dean's death, Sal was discarded. The studios no longer cared. He turned to selling himself just to survive. He had exclusive arrangements with directors in Palm Springs, trading nights for bit roles in low-budget films. By the late 1960s, he tried to rebuild his career. He directed plays, joined independent projects, and began speaking out. Just a week before his murder, he told a CBS reporter, "I have names, photos, tapes. If something happens to me, go find them." On February 12, 1976, Sal Mineo was stabbed to death outside his apartment. Police ruled it a robbery, but his wallet and watch were untouched. His briefcase, the one rumored to hold his evidence, vanished forever. Mineo's story was a warning. Sometimes, the truth could get you killed. And those who survived often did so by burying their past so deeply that even their closest fans never knew. One such man was Hollywood's golden giant. On screen, he was the ideal lover. Off-screen, he was the premium gift at parties no one ever spoke about. 4. Rock Hudson, Hollywood's polite escort. Rock Hudson was the perfect American man. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that melted audiences. But behind the scenes, he was something else entirely. The most valuable asset at Hollywood's secret parties. Hudson was managed by Henry Wilson, a notorious talent agent who turned handsome young men into stars by training them straight from the bedroom. One of Wilson's assistants later revealed a chilling studio memo. "He's obedient, discreet, and always ready to accompany clients if I nod." From the Beverly Hills Hotel to Palm Springs Estates, Hudson's role was the same. He arrived with a smile, charmed the guests, and if requested, vanished into private rooms. A leaked recording between Wilson and producer Ross Hunter revealed just how transactional it was. He can handle 2 people a night, as long as no one takes pictures. When Hudson became a star with Pillow Talk, the studios used him at secret fundraising parties. Every time he appeared, wealthy investors poured millions into films. He wasn't just a movie idol, he was a business tool. After his death, a crumpled note was found among his things. In shaky handwriting, it read, "I was never allowed to say no." But Hudson wasn't the only perfect gentleman, hiding a shadow. Another was hailed as Hollywood's most desirable husband, yet his real life told another story. 5. Cary Grant, the gentleman's double life. Cary Grant was the dream husband of the 1940s and 50s. On screen, he was witty, charming, and flawless. But in reality, he lived for 2 decades with actor Randolph Scott. Photographs of them lounging at their Malibu mansion were brushed off by the press as inseparable companions. Behind closed doors, those companions hosted exclusive parties. Directors, producers, financiers, men who could greenlight careers. According to Hollywood fixer Scotty Bowers, Cary wasn't just attending, he was orchestrating. One cinematographer remembered being invited to the house, where Grant disappeared with 3 directors upstairs. A week later, he landed a leading role. A leaked Columbia Pictures memo in 1942 even referenced Grant's complete compliance with after-hours activities, arranged by the studio, but Grant never spoke about it. Not once. When tabloids hinted at secrets, he married 5 times to women who never truly stayed. He learned silence was the best armor. Yet silence wasn't always an option, especially when the King of Hollywood himself had skeletons locked away since his very first days. 6. Clark Gable, the kept young man. Before he became Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, Clark Gable was just a poor young man in Oregon. At 21, homeless and desperate, he was taken in by William H. Wright, an older playwright. Officially, Gable was called Wright's apprentice. In reality, Wright paid for everything: clothes, food, shelter, in exchange for complete obedience. Neighbors recalled that every Friday night Wright hosted gatherings. Gable would serve drinks with a smile, then disappear into a private room with the guests. After Wright's sudden death, Gable moved to Los Angeles with contacts Wright had given him. MGM executives soon bailed him out of a scandal with a male critic, ensuring his career survived. Even as a superstar, whispers followed him. Some say he pressured MGM to fire George Cukor from Gone with the Wind, fearing the openly gay director might expose their past. Louis B. Mayer, MGM's boss, once sneered, "Gable knows the price of a tux, and the price you pay to wear it." But not every star hid in silence. One of Hollywood's greatest dancers was trapped in an endless routine, one that continued even after the curtain fell. 7. Gene Kelly, dancing for more than applause. Gene Kelly was dazzling. Audiences saw him glide across the stage with effortless joy, but his path to stardom was paved through darker choreography. In 1937, Kelly joined a secret training group in New York, supposedly for Broadway hopefuls. Former members later revealed it was nothing more than a covert audition pipeline where young men were judged on their obedience as much as their talent. Kelly passed the test and was soon connected with director Stanley Donen, his collaborator and rumored secret lover, for nearly a decade. But even after making it big, Kelly wasn't free. Studios arranged social engagements for him with wealthy investors. One journalist recalled Kelly dancing the entire night at a mansion. But there were no cameras, no stage, no audience, only 3 powerful men with a contract waiting to be signed. In a letter to a friend, Kelly confessed, "They want me to dance for them, but no one ever asks if I'm tired, or sad, or disgusted with myself." He became a legend, but always walked through hallways without mirrors, preferring not to face his own reflection. And he wasn't alone. Another young star once admitted, "I've done things that weren't in the script." 8. Tony Curtis, the heartthrob with a price tag. Tony Curtis was the embodiment of Hollywood charm. With sharp cheekbones, jet black hair, and a grin that could silence a room, he was the kind of man casting directors dreamed of. Audiences saw him as the playful trickster, the romantic lead, the irresistible boy from the Bronx who conquered the screen. But behind that smile was a boy who had learned very early on that nothing in Hollywood was free. In 1948, Curtis was just another hopeful, broke, and anonymous, wandering into Universal's audition rooms. According to journalist Robert Hoffler, author of The Man Who Invented Rock Hudson, Curtis's first real test didn't happen on a soundstage. It happened in a private apartment, where an aging casting director invited him to stay for the week. Curtis didn't protest. He later admitted in an unaired interview, "I knew exactly what they wanted, and I knew exactly how to use my face. It was the most valuable thing I had." That week changed everything. By 1949, he was cast in Criss Cross, a minor role that put him on the industry's radar. He never forgot how he got there. Over the next few years, Curtis lived a double life, charming on screen but privately bound to late-night visits and whispered contracts. He once told a co-star, "I've done things that weren't in the script, and if anyone knew, they'd never call me sweet again." By the time he starred in Some Like It Hot alongside Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon, Curtis was America's golden boy. The tabloids adored him. The studios hailed him as the century's heartthrob. But his private journal told another story. In shaky handwriting, he scribbled, "I traded myself so many times that I don't know if I was ever really chosen. Maybe I never was." The irony of Curtis's life was that he became exactly what the public wanted: confident, dazzling, untouchable, while privately haunted by the memory of hotel rooms where he was told to smile and obey. Even in old age, when asked about his early days, Curtis gave a bitter grin and said, "Hollywood is built on deals. Some are signed on paper. Some are signed in bed. I knew which ones I signed." Curtis had played the game and survived, but not everyone was as skilled at hiding the scars. One man, delicate, shy, and fragile, would pay a far heavier price for the same bargain. 9. Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates and the Price of Survival. Anthony Perkins had the kind of face directors loved. Tall, slim, with soft eyes and a fragile smile. He carried a strange mixture of innocence and danger. It was the perfect mask for Hollywood, and later, the perfect mask for Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho. But before Perkins became a star, he was just another vulnerable boy in New York, desperate to belong. In the early 1950s, Perkins survived by attending arranged meetings at hotels like the Commodore. His most powerful patron was Roy Cohn, a ruthless attorney and political fixer who connected young men with media tycoons and Hollywood elites. One anonymous insider told Confidential magazine in 1965, "Perkins was rare. He made people feel like they were the only one. In return, they gave him roles." His big break came with Friendly Persuasion in 1956. But whispers followed him everywhere. Some claimed he was being sponsored by a network executive who kept him on contract with special conditions. Others suggested Alfred Hitchcock himself bought Perkins out of his old studio deal, with a contract rumored to include obligations far beyond acting. Perkins's letters, revealed after his death, paint the picture of a man trapped by the very system that made him famous. In one to an ex-lover, he confessed, "I'm not afraid to die for a role. I'm afraid people will discover how I had to die slowly to earn it." The role of Norman Bates made him immortal, but it also typecast him forever. Behind the scenes, Perkins battled isolation, fear, and a desperate need to keep his secret life hidden. In 1972, during therapy, he allegedly told a psychologist, "I'm no longer me. I'm a deal, a gift that was traded, and I don't know who signed the contract, me or them." His marriages, his public appearances, even his carefully scripted interviews were masks. Perkins carried himself like a gentleman, but his fragile smile often broke when the cameras stopped rolling. The world adored him as Norman Bates, but the truth was that Perkins himself had long since become a prisoner of Hollywood's bargain. 10. Scotty Bowers, Hollywood's secret fixer. Scotty Bowers was no star. He was a Marine turned gas station worker. But from the 1940s onward, he became the middleman for all of Hollywood's secrets. From a small gas station on Hollywood Boulevard, Bowers arranged encounters for directors, producers, politicians, and the most famous names of the Golden Age. His memoir, Full Service, revealed he had arranged over 1,000 liaisons in 3 decades, and personally joined in many of them. Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, Spencer Tracy. They were all clients, he said. "I wasn't forcing anyone. They came to me because they had no choice. They needed roles. They needed rent. They needed to survive." Bowers was never arrested, never sued. He kept the silence that everyone relied on. When he died in 2019, he left behind a vault of names, a reminder that Hollywood's glittering image was built on far darker foundations. So the men who once made millions swoon. The perfect gentlemen of Hollywood's golden age carried secrets they could never share. Some paid once, others paid every night. Some survived, others were silenced forever. The question is, did it end with them? Or has it only evolved into something more sophisticated, more secretive, and even more dangerous today? Because if Hollywood has always been about power, then the truth behind the spotlight may be far darker than any script we've ever seen. So what do you think? If you had the choice, Would you stay true to yourself and risk obscurity, or would you trade everything for fame? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell because the stories we're uncovering are only just beginning.